The tariffs are coming. The tariffs are coming. The break. I think. I'm not sure.
Maybe
they're coming. The tariffs are coming.
Maybe.
What? The breakdown starts now. We can't tune out all the tariff talk.
You know, the terrorism of the tariffs, I'm not trying to make too much of a cutesy phrase there. The absurdity of it is so astounding. The blowback is so intense. The stupidity of it is so utterly evident to even people with the mental capacity of a planaria. I am stunned, I tell you, shocked that multiple bankruptcy specialist Donald Trump didn't get it right when it comes to an economic suicide pact called global tariffs.
I'm expecting at some point for him to just, especially when I saw the 200% tariff on European, I was like, 200%, I'm waiting for him to just like spin around in a chair with a non-existent pet since he doesn't like animals. And he's like, 2 billion% tariff.
Yes. Then we'll raise the tariffs to 2 billion%, Mr. Bigglesworth.
That's very impressive,
but look,
right?
I mean, today he's like, we're gonna tax champagne and we can make better champagne here in America. And I'm not being a snob. I'm not being a dick. I am a dick and a snob. But I will say, Donald, perhaps you should realize that if it's not from the Champagne region of France, it's just sparkling wine. Just as if you're fascism, never mind, it's just sparkling authoritarianism.
I was gonna say sparkling Nazis. Like what are we?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, here's the thing about the tariff issue. Donald Trump has this tiny circle of people around him, and Harold Lutnick and Peter Navarro, both are feeding Donald Trump's worst instincts about tariffs. Yes, Mr. Trump, you are so brilliant. This is the way. And they've learned they can play to the dumb part of the audience. They've learned they can play to Trump's like obsessions. And Navarro is a mastermind at this. Every person on Wall Street, even the ones who are trying to sort of like stay in his good graces, are like, well, I hope the president listens to some other advice about this because we're crashing out. I mean, think about this, Maya. Stock market has lost 10% since Donald Trump became president.
Oh, it's down. It's way down.
It didn't matter. None of those things had to happen. This was an optional formation. Trump did this because he thought this was fun and cool. And tariffs are taxes. Americans are going to pay those taxes. Wall Street sees it coming. They see the recession that he's going to create by raising these taxes. It's just astounding to me.
Well, and I feel like now the American people are starting to learn more about tariffs than they ever wanted to. The whole point of having government is so that we can be able to pursue our livelihoods without being dialed in 150% of the time. Like, we're not supposed to know everything about everything. And the thing about global trade is it exists for a reason. Like, it's supposed to be about efficiency. We can't make everything here and be efficient about it. Some places have better wood, for example, and so we get it from there instead of from our national forests, which is apparently what Donald Trump thinks is a solution to not importing wood from Canada. And what's interesting to me is all of these other countries are calling his bluff. Like, nobody's very flustered by what he's doing.
The Canadians basically are being like as saucy as they ever get.
Right?
They're like being as zesty as Canadians can get. And God love them, because they really are the nicest people in the world. And it takes a lot to get the Canadians to the point where they're like, hey, fuck you, brother.
They're so riled up. And I'm like, all I know is that, like, he better not mess with those little maple syrup candies, those things that dissolve in your mouth. Don't touch those. No tariffs on the.
He will find a way. He will find a way to blow this deal, no matter what, because he always finds a way to screw things up. And so he didn't try to negotiate He didn't try to negotiate a sensible deal for both countries. He didn't try to capture revenue. I had a great conversation with Mark Cuban today for the podcast. We're talking about all these companies from overseas that basically sell through Amazon, and none of them, we collect zero taxes on their work in America. Donald Trump's bullshit of golden age, you'll make so many trillions, no one will have, you'll have so much money, you won't know what to do with it. That's how you do that. You don't do a trade war with freaking Canada of all places.
Well, and I feel like Canada and Europe is finding out about it the same way we all are, which is from Truth Social. Like, I feel like there's not even a conversation happening behind the scenes. Like,
right,
it's just
right. It really is something. It really is something that. And look, that's deliberate in part because Trump wants to feed a very curated message to his base every day.
That he's crazy?
Well, he wants there is that. But he wants his base to think, oh, this is a plan. We're playing 47-dimensional quantum chess. It's all, but when you're talking about 200% tariffs on alcohol from Europe, when you do that, and the French reciprocate, what do? They say, okay, well, tell you what, we'll go ahead and do 200% tariffs on Kentucky bourbon. How do you feel about that, Mitch McConnell? How you doing with that one, guys? And they're going to go for tariffs on Tennessee sipping whiskey. How you feel about that, Marsha Blackburn? These people inside Trump's orbit who think tariffs are a one-way street and America is the only country that can do them, they're not in any capacity understanding that this is a game both parties play. And Canada may be a smaller economy, Mexico may be a smaller economy, but those are important economies to us because they provide us with things like energy and metals that run things like homes and cities and automobile factories. And the whole obsession with tariffs that Trump has in his mind is this fantasy version of it. And so that's why the economy is teetering on the edge of a recession. That's why markets are in an absolute free fall shit show panic. That's why conservative influencers are like, oh no, this isn't a terrifying incineration of retirement funds. This is a minor correction. We're in correction territory. That's like saying we're in Indian territory in 1835, or maybe you have dysentery. You've died of dysentery.
We want to be out of there. We don't want to be in that territory.
No,
what Rick's trying
you
to say.
do not.
You want to get out of that territory.
But we've seen a lot this week of some cracks in the MAGA media infrastructure. Mm-hmm. We had Ben Shapiro saying if Trump gets branded with this, it's going to be bad. Thanks, Ben. Good tip. We'll work on that for you. Yeah. Make sure we're squared away on that front. And you've had the Wall Street Journal several times this week saying this is fucking stupid. I'm summarizing slightly.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't exactly like that headline, but it was close.
But the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, for their style, for their tone, they were saying this is fucking stupid. And we even lost your friend Peter Doocy a couple times this week. We have that clip, right?
Now dropping is a period of transition. You're sure nobody here at the White House shorted the Dow?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. But is there any concern here that it's going to be harder to ask certain federal workers to retire if they look at their retirement accounts and they're getting robbed every day?
Well, I'm glad you...
That's a valid question from Peter Doocy.
I am shocked to admit it, but it is kind of like a valid question from Peter Doocy. And I did not see that coming. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anyone did. She certainly didn't see it coming because her response, I don't think was adequate. And what's interesting is that so many people are being hurt by this. And I don't know if they're checking their portfolios every single day or right now just avoiding because they don't want to see it, but they are going to see it and feel it, especially if they're near retirement age. And all of a sudden now they're adding how many years to their to having to continue to work before they can retire because of this minor correct, like with no end in sight.
Don't
Like
worry about
there's no plan.
Right.
There's no plan to get out of this so far that I've seen, because if there were, I'm sure they would have told us by now. And no, it's just in what seems to be free fall at a time where people are hoping for some kind of stability. And I think that we have to blame Trump for it, because it is squarely on his shoulders. And somehow he still manages to bring up Biden, which is insane to me that there isn't a crazy amount of pushback on that. Like, they own this. They have every branch of the government right now. They own the economy as it's crashing for everyone.
They have a magical gift inside the right-wing media bubble where they're just ignoring the story. They're just pretending it's not happening. And they're trying to rebrand it. Oh, it's a correction. It's our government coming. It's our economy coming back to life.
Mm-hmm.
No, y'all. It's a bunch of idiots with diesel fuel and matches running through the country, setting everything on fire.
Yeah, and so Tesla's suffering, but luckily for Tesla, they have a friend.
That's terrible, Maya. Yeah. What will poor Elon Musk do? He's lost $158 billion of net of value in his net worth the last few days, which still makes him the richest motherfucker in the world. But what could they do, Maya? I'm at a loss.
I mean, I know whenever I'm hurting for cash, I have a lawn sale. I invite people to my lawn to sell wares. No, maybe this could be what Trump could do to help out retirees, is go to their houses and sell products from their lawn.
I don't hate this. We have here a beautiful fondue set. No one's ever had a fondue set as beautiful as this since 1974. Look at it. Look at this, the gleaming stainless steel, the tiny forks. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, you could find it's all computer. It's all
computer. A fondue set. Jesus. I'm punchy today, y'all.
Oh my God, we have to be, because otherwise we're going to lose our minds with all of this. Because if you would have asked anybody, even within Trump's circle, if there was going to be a moment like this, if you would have asked this a month ago, even, I think people would be like, are you out of your mind? This is pure insanity. This is comedy already happening without anybody actually having to put a treatment on it. It's just
I love the tweet LP put out this week. They close up on that shot and it's like, caption this, and the first one was, that's not the gear shift, Elon.
Oh, I didn't see that. I did not see that.
I mean, look, the dignity of the presidency with Donald Trump has always been kind of in the rearview mirror, but this absolutely was the most embarrassing shilling I've ever seen an active or retired president do for anything. I mean, it's astounding to me. After he was president, Ronald Reagan got criticized for being paid $500,000 to give a speech to the Japanese Chamber of Commerce. And now you look at this, it's like, it's all computer. Come on down to Big Donnie's auto giveaway here on the White House lawn. I expected those inflatable things to be dancing on the lawn.
That will be the Halloween costume this year. Nothing scarier than your president selling cars on the White House lawn. Happy Halloween, everybody. But like, in all of these images that I see of Trump and Elon, it always feels like Elon's kind of like watching over him in this sort of like, I'm watching you, making sure you comply and do what I want you to do. Yeah. It's almost creepy. Like, he knows he bought him and he can't even hide it in his demeanor. Right. The way he sits and watches, like, don't mess up and make sure you read those prices. Like, they gave him the prices of the cars in the hands and all the selling points. Like, I felt like I was in Glenn Ross. He's like, the leads are weak. No, you're weak.
First
Oh.
prize, set of steak knives. Second prize, you're fired. But here's the funny part about it. First off, it did not move Tesla stock price a bit. It continued to decline today. The stock price is bleeding out all over the floor, and buying a Tesla now. There was a social cachet to buying a Tesla 5 years ago,
Mhm.
3 years ago, last year. It started to slip, but now, I mean, you might as well buy like the Panzer Duschwagen, the alt-right car company. It just doesn't have the same zhuzh it once did, and it also now British Columbia just took all of the rebates, the environmental rebates, off for Tesla. California is about to do that, and when that happens, that company's stock is going to go down to a technical term we use in the Deep South, $1.380. It is not going to do well.
Okay.
And everyone's scared of Elon spending all his money on them right now. Elon's sitting on a real house of cards with Tesla, and everything he does with Doge is hurting that stock price and hurting him. And that's how all of his wealth is based, y'all. It's all in Tesla. That's where the money comes from. SpaceX eventually will be very valuable. Starlink eventually will be very valuable if he doesn't use it to kill Ukrainians. But
I see him kind of messing that up too, though, because
yeah.
Europeans are already the number of sales for Tesla in Europe has dropped.
Utterly crashed out. In Germany,
So,
sales for Tesla are down 65% last month. And I sent that as a joke to a German friend the other day, and she replied, I don't think it'll be a percentage next month. I think it'll be in the single digits.
I mean, possibly.
How many Teslas get sold in Germany?
Exactly, like one or two. No, the thing that because Europe knows that we're playing a different game. While there may be some Democrats, and we'll get into that a little bit, I suppose, but it seems like Europeans understand. I see the anger about to bubble over. Europeans understand that there is a different game being played now, and they are meeting the moment by saying, no, we're going to, talk with our dollars. We're going to talk with our tariff retaliations. And
wow, it's like markets actually work. How about that, Elon? Actions have consequences.
Yeah, that's the free market.
Yeah. And free markets are notoriously punish people who produce bad products. They also punish people who are bad people.
Yeah. Also, not to mention the fact that I don't know if you remember this, but remember when the Tesla truck blew up in front of I think it was in Trump Tower. It was the first.
Yeah.
And in the investigation after, they were able to track a lot of information from the different Tesla charging stations. And so they started to realize there may be a privacy issue for Tesla owners. Elon having access to way more information about them than perhaps they would like. And so it's interesting because now that the only people who want to buy his cars are Republicans or conservatives, people who supposedly like privacy. So,
here's the thing. All Tesla vehicles are essentially spyware with four wheels. And if you buy the Duschpanzer, you're driving spyware with four wheels that can lock you in and burn you to death if something goes wrong. Call me crazy, but that seems like a pretty high price to pay to have the chief enabler of American fascism running around as the richest man in the world. Yeah. So
there are plenty of other options.
Great options out there. Polestar, Lucid, Range Rover's coming out with an all-electric. Volvo XC90 all-electric.
The Ford Lightning. I don't know if you've seen the Ford Lightning F-150, like that electric. I saw that and I was like, Mama's going to get a truck. Like, I was ready for
it. I do and don't miss what we referred to as the big dumb truck. Back in the days when my daughter was horse showing and pulling boats around and going to horse shows, I drove a Ford F-250 Super Duty King Ranch diesel.
Wow.
That was a tribute to the steel industry. If the brakes had ever gone out of that, it probably would have shot me into orbit.
I'm glad.
I don't miss it that much, honestly.
I'm glad the brakes held.
You had to like get out of my driveway with it. There was a lot of slow K turning in my driveway with that.
I really, Rick and I, we've never talked about cars, and I love
No.
cars, I love trucks, and I realize we've never talked about that. We're totally off track now. We got a pun intended, no pun intended.
But I do think, but before we leave Tesla, we had our buddy Peter Ducey one more time taking a pop. I don't know what's in Peter Ducey's Wheaties these days, but I suspect it's Mr. Rupert Murdoch. Give that fucking Trump some sass, boy. Get him. Get on him.
President Trump buying a new car, while there are some folks who will see this clip at home and they are struggling with their retirement accounts down at the moment, uncertainty about work ahead.
Well, I think they're going to do great. I think our country had to do this. We had to go and do this. They've taken away, other countries have taken away our business. They've taken away our jobs. I did it initially very strongly against, as you know, China and some others in the first term. And it was a very successful term. We had no inflation. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country.
The word salad of lies, like he says nothing but also managed to lie at the same time, which is really a feat that is very a particular set of skills that Donald
It is
Trump
a particular set of skills. And you know, the fantasy world of Trump in his brain, he thinks he is winning, and that this is somehow the market's collapsing is somehow a sign of him winning. I may not be the sharpest economic knife in the drawer. I only had 4 economics courses in college, and macro got a little much at the end. But I seem to remember that collapsing markets, collapsing retirement savings, massive layoffs that are going to blow up the economy. Call me crazy, but that doesn't seem like a recipe for so much winning, or a golden age, if you will.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's coups, it's coups and market corrections, and it's all very illegal. It seems like
markets like stability.
Yeah,
they like stability a lot. They like the rule of law a lot. They like to know that the world runs by some rules.
Yeah.
Both of those things, famously, Donald Trump is very well known for loving both the law and stability. Absolutely. He's your go-to guy when it comes to obeying the law and keeping things on a smooth course.
Yeah, but they are good at resurrecting laws that they would like to use, like almost like it's like they got the Ouija board out and they're like, what terrible thing could we bring from the 1600s, 1700s to raise from the dead in order to torture the people of today? And yeah, here we are, the Alien Enemies Act.
Alien Enemies Act.
President from the dead. This isn't good. This isn't good. It's only been invoked, I think, 3 times, and it's supposed to be used in times of war, and we are not at war.
No, we are not at war. We are not at war. The funny thing is that Donald Trump and Tom Homan promised to deport somewhere between, on the low end, 10 million, on the high end, 25 million people. Now that was always kind of a wish casting goal rather than an actual number that they could accomplish. But it's gone so slowly and gone so poorly that Trump is about to fire Tom Homan, and he's getting a little jittery about Christie the dog killer over at DHS, because they're just not doing enough to scare the shit out of migrants in this country.
Yeah.
And so this idea, this like, from the mind of Stephen Miller, this idea is such a radical departure and such an abuse of a law that has been used rarely because it's rarely necessary to use, and deporting people who are here fleeing Venezuelan oppression under this law, or here to do yard work or construction or stoop labor in agriculture, does not strike me as the same category as foreign spies, agents, and other ne'er-do-wells. It's a sign of their desperation to get something moving, and the way they think they can get something moving is to throw the law away so they can just round people up and disappear them.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that they've been managing to round up have, of course, not been these hardened criminals, but a family who their daughter was a U.S. citizen
Right.
and she was getting brain cancer treatment. She was a survivor, 10 years old, and this family gets deported. And so they're not getting the juicy, salacious stories
Right.
that they really want to be able
They
to
wanted,
continue to
like,
gin up the
we
base.
found a gang from Trindiagua. They were eating cats and running a sex ring or whatever. And they're not getting those stories.
Yeah.
Because those stories
Were made up.
mostly are there bad things that illegal immigrants do in this country? 100%.
Mhm.
Is it some vast millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people? No, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But no, absolutely. And that's the thing. And all those stories now have disappeared. We're not hearing any of those stories that, JD Vance, of course, he himself said he made up because their people will believe anything.
Apparently the cats and the dogs are safe now.
Safe and sound. But the thing that's keeping me up at night right
Mhm.
now is the backslide and the freedoms that are being curtailed. And so
Sure.
the story that everybody is following this week of Mahmoud Khalil
Mhm.
and his disappearance. He was disappeared very briefly, but
Yep.
they didn't know where he was. His lawyers weren't able to get a hold of him. His wife, who was a U.S. citizen, born and raised here, wasn't able to locate him because of speech that Donald Trump did not like, because of speech that Republicans do not like. Freedom of speech, the First Amendment, one part of the First Amendment, the right to assembly, right? These are things that are supposed to be the cornerstone of our democracy.
Sure.
And if they can take them away from someone, they can take them away from anyone.
And this is a test case. And I'll tell you something. I think a lot of the things that I've read that this guy said were outrageous. And I'm not a fan of Hamas in any circumstance whatsoever. But and by the way, the Constitution, as has been proven in the courts over and over again, does not merely apply to full U.S. citizens. It applies to people who are here in the United States.
Mhm.
The idea of curtailing this guy, all the MAGAs are going to go, yeah, he's a terrorist. So then you're going to curtail the free speech of people who aren't advocating for Hamas or a terrorist group, but that you just don't like them. So what happens next? Is it going to be people who speak up for Ukraine and Donald Trump finds them offensive? Or is it going to be people who are political critics of Donald Trump, like us?
Mhm.
Because the restriction and the elimination of free speech, political free speech in particular, was something the founders were incredibly sensitive about. They were super worried about it. And they felt like it was so important that it was the very First Amendment. And this idea of free speech, when you don't like the speech, is why we have a First Amendment. Unpleasant speech, speech you disagree with, speech you find repulsive or abhorrent, with a very, very tiny number of legitimate exceptions, advocation of immediate violence and child pornography and things like that fall in a super limited category, as they should. The idea that you can trust the Trump administration to manage what speech is correct, what speech is admissible, what speech is permittable, what speech gets you put in jail or sent away, what speech gets you denied lawyers and legal counsel, what speech gets you sent to Gitmo, what speech has you instantly deported. Those things are not following the rule of law. There are procedures for terrorists in this country. If you find out somebody's a terrorist, there are procedures that you must follow with prosecution and courts. And this guy, you can think of him as the biggest dipshit on the planet Earth, and he may well be. But he still had a right to speak in this country. And the minute you start, even if you're a MAGA, and you start thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to hear from Rick Wilson and Maya May anymore. They're assholes and they hate Donald Trump. Do not think for a moment that the restrictions on free speech stop with your political enemies. They always go further. They always get wider. They always get crazier. They always get more damaging. and we're going to see more attempts on this. This is why Trump is suing all the media companies. This is why people like Mike Flynn has been suing me for 2 years now almost, for $10 million because he doesn't like something because I was a quote unquote mean to him on Twitter. Well, get used to it, Chief. But this idea that free speech is just something that Donald Trump and Tom Homan are going to say, oh, that doesn't count anymore, is insane.
Well, and they've already signaled that they want to target nonprofit organizations that support things that they feel are against what
they're
they
going
believe
after
in.
noted terrorist group Habitat for Humanity right now. What do you do?
Another one of those things that I looked at and I was like,
You're right. Same as everyone. So I was like, did I read that right? Did I read that right? Is this some like subgroup like Habitat for Hamas or something that I missed?
Right, exactly. I'm like, I must have read this wrong. They're building houses for people. How dare they? But apparently it's fraud around climate science. And so that's the thing. They're going to label everything that is not pro Donald Trump becomes potential domestic terrorism. I think now they're trying to label the protests at Tesla dealerships as terrorism. I think if you at some point supporting LGBTQ groups is going to be perceived as terrorism. And you know what other country did that, Rick? Now that I'm thinking about it.
I do. It's the one with the tiny gentleman with the angry mustache.
Yeah.
I do recall that. Yeah.
So,
a sad amount of German history decorates these walls. And so, these bookshelves. And so, this is the pattern, y'all. This is the pattern. I mean, you have seen guys like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and Kash Patel and Dan Bing Bongo. You've seen them before. The uniforms were Hugo Boss. The names had more consonants, but this is a pattern we've seen before. And I just want to remind all of them that just in case you don't win, I was just following orders, did not work at Nuremberg. Just let you know.
And they won't win because the American people are strong and resilient and are resisting and are speaking up and asking for their elected officials to do the same. And so there has been the amount of uproar over the pending continuing resolution vote, which is, okay, everywhere I've seen, people are screaming at Democrats to let it shut down.
Let it burn.
Let the Republicans own this. And Rick, we thought that up until right before we came on air, it looked like there was going to be a backbone in the Democratic Party, and that the Senate was they're going to hold the line. We thought that was the plan.
All three branches of government. The Democrats could not pass a bill of any kind if their hair was on fire. This CR empowers Doge, continues the random wacky cuts, protects Donald Trump from the consequences of his actions, eliminates the possibility that Congress could stop the tariff wars. It is full of radioactive poison wrapped in a nougat-filled layer, covered in desiccated moose shit, rolled up in asbestos, and you're not going to convince me it's a fucking bonbon, Chuck Schumer. Yeah. This man just cut the throats of Democrats who have been fighting every day to stop this CR. What in the hot fuck was that about? It was absolutely the most politically irresponsible and tone-deaf moment you could possibly have. Now you've empowered Mike Johnson, empowered Donald Trump, empowered the MAGA GOP to continue to do what they're doing. Incinerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Burn down the government. Rifle through every single American's personal tax records, their healthcare records, their Social Security records. Shut down information about what they're doing to the American people. This is the CR is the most toxic piece of shit I could possibly imagine. and Chuck Schumer just went, nah, too hard. We're not going to fight it. They might blame us. Guess what? Let them fucking blame you. Get in the fight. Show people you give a shit. Show people there's some line you won't fucking cross. Show people you've got a spine and guts and heart and some blood in your veins. Jesus fucking Christ, Chuck. Do you want you Mitch McConnell, if he was in your shoes, would be fucking Donald Trump every minute of the day. Mitch McConnell would have Mike Johnson rolled over on the floor, tied up in knots every day. If you can't do it, if you're the fucking General McClellan of the US Senate, quit and let someone who's got some fucking balls take the job. This CR is going to absolutely fuck your people. You're going to dishearten every Democrat in the country. You're going to hurt your chances in 2026. And when you sit there and go, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. Yes, there is something you can do. You can tell the story every day. You can go out every day and tell people the harm that is being done by Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Mike Johnson and John Thune and every other goddamn Republican who's leading this charge to burn this fucking country to the ground. Am I mad? Yes, I'm mad. Is anger justified? Yes, it's justified. The fact that you people have a perfect setup, teed up opportunity where you could absolutely hang this around their necks like a fucking boat anchor and throw them into the deep end of the pool absolutely boggles my mind. That's it. End of discussion.
I was going to say, that's all we needed to hear. I can someone please send that to Chuck Schumer directly? Can somebody...
I think he'll get it. I'm pretty sure I'm getting a call from somebody around him tomorrow.
Yeah, I was like, tag him.
You're so disrespectful.
But this is the thing. The people will back him up if he has the backbone to stand up to Donald Trump.
I've said this 1,000 times, Maya. When you're in a dog fight, people want to see some fight in the dog.
Yeah.
They want to see you actually fighting. These people, and I told a Democratic House member this the other day, and I started out saying this kind of like in a joking way, because he called me. He said, "I see you didn't like the signs." I'm like, "No, I didn't like the signs. I thought they were kind of pathetic." I said, "You guys have this like mushy thing, and if Trump had handed out knives to those Republicans and said, 'Go kill them,' you guys would all be dead."
This is true.
And instead of laughing, he said, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Well, it's like,
this is who you're facing.
Men, sir, are already dead.
This is
like,
who you're facing.
Yeah,
they're facing insane people, and you're treating them like, my honorable colleagues have a different point of view on the CR.
They're going to decorum themselves to death. It's not a dinner party. It's not a dinner party. It's
not a dinner party.
And I'm like, I'm genuinely like, I'm a nice person. I care about people, but I recognize when it's time to punch someone in the throat, metaphorically speaking. And now is the time to do that. So, everybody.
There's a phrase on the right that was very popular during Obama. And it actually comes from an older phrase from the French Resistance. And it's too late to work inside the system, but it's too soon to start killing motherfuckers. You decide where you are on that scale, because they're going to start killing motherfuckers. There are times I absolutely despair that we need combat Democrats. We need Democrats who not only want to fight, but are willing to fight. And I'm going to say, I got to give props this week to Don Larson, Eric Swalwell, Tim Walz, a whole bunch of others Bernie Sanders, AOC, who are going to Republican districts and fucking them. They're going into Republican districts and they're taking the heat to the Republicans. They're having these huge town hall meetings and they're getting responses from Republicans too, y'all. And they're saying, I didn't know what I was voting for. And if they want to sell you that to you, okay. If they realize how bad this is for them, great. Have a great conversation at that point. This idea that there's nothing you can do about any of this, I'm wired. Maybe I'm just wired different. Maybe I'm just wired broken. But the idea of giving up on this fight, on the CR fight, when you know what's in that bill, and you know what it's going to do, boggles my damn mind.
Absolutely, because they've already seen what they're willing to do. And so when we've all seen what they're willing to do and what they've done in just a short amount of time, and this would just be even worse. And so,
Somebody mentioned Jasmine Crockett. I don't want to leave her off that list.
oh yeah, and also Jasmine, you did not mention Jasmine Crockett. I was like, maybe this week she was quiet, but
No.
but yes, she
No,
was.
I'm sorry, the folks, and there are a lot of Democrats in the field right now doing this. A lot,
Yeah.
more than I can. More than I mean, I rattle off what I had in my head, but and if you haven't listened to that Don Larson stripping the fucking bark off of his Republican colleagues yesterday, holy shit, worth the ride.
And this is all important again because it's about listening to the people, like giving the megaphone to the people, as they say. And so, people, that's what this is all about. And people are being hurt. People's voices need to be heard and need to
Yep.
be amplified. And there are, there are key races that are even happening right now. We got Wisconsin, all eyes on Wisconsin,
Yep.
and Florida,
game.
and special elections. Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. And so it's important to remember that the whole reason government exists is to serve the people. And so it will be the elected officials who remember that at the end of the day that are going to be the ones to come out of this relatively unscathed. People are going to say, you know what, I saw you fight for me. Maybe you didn't do it perfectly, but I saw you fight for me.
Right.
And so more of that. I want to stay optimistic. I want to stay optimistic. So more of that.
More of that and less of Rick screaming like a lunatic into the camera.
No, it needs to be done.
I promise you that's going to be on like the right wingers tomorrow. Wilson loses his shit. Yes, I did.
Wilson said what needed to be said, and we are grateful for you and grateful for everybody who tunes in and hangs out with us every week, because quite honestly, I look forward to this, and it gives me an opportunity to sort of reflect on what's going on and how it's affecting everybody. And it's important that we go through all of this together, and we laugh together, and we figure it out together, and we don't allow ourselves to get demoralized, because that's what they want. And so it's always good to take a moment to just take a deep breath, pause, know that we've gotten through difficult times before as a country, and we've got a very strong and broad coalition, and maybe we didn't win this election, and so now things are going to be a lot harder going forward, but we still got each other, and the fight's still in us. It's definitely still in you, Rick, and so that inspires me, and I'm sure inspiring many others as well. So thank you, y'all. Seriously.
We love y'all. You're the best. Okay. Follow, like, subscribe, do all the things.
Yes, all the things. My on stage, all the platforms, not on Peloton anymore.
All the things.
Yeah. I'm boxing instead of Peloton. I can't do biking's not going to do it. It's all boxing. Got to up the game. Yeah.
Got to up the game. All right, guys. Well, I think we've had about enough fun for one night. Love y'all. Stay in the fight. Call your member of Congress. Call your U.S. Senator. If you were in a red district, call your member of Congress at least once or twice a week. Don't just call the DC office, call the district office. Those people get more scared of you. Be nice, be professional, be persistent, and tell them they absolutely you need answers on why they're cutting your programs, why they're cutting education, why they're cutting your Social Security, your Medicare, your Medicaid, why they're screwing over folks in your district, whether they're teachers or farmers or scientists or exporters of any kind. Ask them the question. Get an answer from them. Why are you hurting me? Because the two things that are happening here is it's getting more crazy and they're hurting more people. Those are your two themes. Go get them. See y'all next time.
See you next week.